Anya was known in high society as the ultimate ice queen, while I was infamous as the chaos bringer of the elite circle. No one could have imagined that the two of us, sworn enemies, would end up entangled in such passionate nights. In front of others, Anya was cold and untouchable, but in private, she gave all her tenderness to me, and I, usually defiant and wild, gave her my most sincere and hidden heart. But just when Anya thought I was going to propose, I left for a city thousands of miles away to marry a dying heiress from another wealthy family, because I never dreamed that the one Anya truly loved was Kenji, my father's mistress's son, and worse yet, she even had me thrown in prison for him. Chapter 1. I was notorious in elite circles as the ultimate troublemaker, a devil-may-care smile, eyes hooking with a single raised brow. Anya was the most outstanding heiress among the wealthy, an untouchable ice queen, elegant and aloof. No one knew that these two polar opposites would become entangled in the back seat of a Maybach late at night, lose control in the restroom of a charity gala, and indulge recklessly in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of a private vineyard. After another round of passion, the sound of water echoed from the bathroom. I leaned against the headboard and dialed my father. I can marry that dying heiress in the South City for a fortune marriage, but I have one condition. Joy was barely concealed in his voice. Say it. As long as you'll marry her, I'll agree to anything. We'll talk more when I'm home. My voice was calm, but my eyes were cold. I hung up the phone and was about to get dressed when I caught sight of Anya's laptop screen glowing beside the bed. The WeChat window was open. The most recent message was from a man saved as my love. It said, "Kenji, I want you to come stay with me." My fingertips trembled. The bathroom door suddenly opened, and Anya walked out, water droplets gliding down her collarbone. The bathrobe hung loosely, mixing seduction with a trace of languidness. "There's something at the office. I'm heading out," she said coolly, grabbing her coat. I curled my lips into a faint smile. "Is it really work, or are you off to see your crush?" Anya didn't catch it. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," I replied, getting out of bed barefoot, my lean waist quickly hidden beneath my shirt. Her eyes dimmed slightly. "I'm going to work. Don't stir up trouble." The moment the door shut behind her, the smile on my face vanished instantly. I ordered a car and followed her. Half an hour later, the vehicle stopped in front of a hotel. Through the curtain of rain, I saw Kenji step out in a white shirt to greet her. Anya quickly walked up, wrapped her coat around him, then held his arm and asked, "It's cold out. Why'd you come out without a coat?" She moved so naturally, as if she'd done the scene 1,000 times. I gripped the car door handle tightly, my nails digging deep into my palm, watching Anya link arms with Kenji, concern in her eyes. I suddenly recalled the first time I met her. At the time, my relationship with my father was extremely strained. After yet another confrontation, he sent me off to learn some discipline under the daughter of his old buddy, Anya. When I first saw her, she was seated in the top floor office of the Lee Group. Her gaze behind the gold-rimmed glasses was cold as ice. Of course, I didn't want to stay there, so I did everything to cause trouble. On my first day at work, I spilled coffee all over her haute couture outfit worth millions. Anya merely glanced at me and said, "Imported Italian cashmere. Put it on the Lee family's account." The second day, I tossed the meeting materials into the shredder on purpose. Unfazed, Anya recited the entire presentation from memory, leaving the executives in the room stunned. On the third day, I drugged her coffee, set up the camera ready to capture her downfall and use it to threaten her, but unexpectedly, I became her antidote instead. We spent the night tangled together in bed. The next morning, I felt disgusted with myself, but Anya curled her fingers and pulled me back in again. "Julian," she murmured hoarsely into my ear, her teeth nibbling my earlobe. Just that one word, Julian, and I surrendered completely. Ever since my mother passed away, no one had called me that name again. From that moment on, everything between us changed. Every time I caused trouble, Anya would pull me straight into her office. Outsiders thought she was going to scold me, but in reality, we were losing our minds together on her desk. Gradually, I realized I had become addicted. Was it because she tasted so good, or because I was just too damn lonely? I didn't know. All I knew was, I had fallen. So, on her birthday, I spent the entire day decorating the villa. Roses, candlelight, music. I even had the engagement ring ready. But I waited all night, waited until the candles burned out, until the roses wilted. She never came. At 3 a.m., a sudden news alert popped up on my phone. Anya spotted picking up her crush at airport late at night. In the photo, Anya was carefully helping a man into a car, her eyes soft to the point of cruelty. The comment section exploded. Ah, what a perfect match, the heiress and the campus prince. I'm dying from the sweetness. Holy crap, isn't that CEO Lee and the heartthrob Kenji? Back in school, they were our golden couple. I was a classmate, I can vouch. CEO Lu was always cold to everyone except Kenji. She only smiled for him. If it weren't for his health issues and needing to go abroad, they'd be married by now. My phone slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. If Anya had someone in her heart all along, then what did that make me? Just a convenient fuck on call? My fingers trembled as I dialed her number, desperate to hear something, anything from her. But the call never connected. After the final failed attempt, I set my phone down and walked into the study, the one room Anya never allowed me to enter. The moment I pushed the door open, I felt like lightning struck my chest. It was filled with Kenji's photos, graduation photos, vacation photos, even secret snapshots of him sleeping. Anya, always so composed and detached, had done this. At that moment, whether I got an answer or not didn't matter anymore. I suddenly burst out laughing, the sound echoing harshly in the empty room. But as I laughed, scalding tears streamed down my face and splashed against the floor. I destroyed the entire villa with bloodshot eyes. The next day, Anya came back. She looked around at the wreckage, then calmly told the staff to clean it up. She didn't even spare me a glance, as if what I had done was the most ordinary thing in the world. I watched helplessly as the servant swept my carefully prepared proposal ring into the trash. She didn't know what was in that box, didn't know I had wanted to spend the rest of my life with her, and she would never know that the moment the ring hit the trash was the moment I decided to stop loving her. Where to, young master? The driver's voice pulled me back to reality. Home, I said coldly, back to the Lee estate. As soon as I stepped into the Lee family villa, my father rushed over in excitement. Julian, you really agreed to go to South City? On the staircase, my stepmother was watching with hopeful eyes. I did, I said, my gaze faintly cold. But didn't I say there's one condition? What condition? Say it. I want to. I paused, enunciating every word. Sever all ties with you as father and son. The air froze instantly. My father's expression darkened. He roared. You've completely lost your mind. Do you even know what you're saying? I couldn't be more clear, I said, my voice as cold as ice. You cheated on Mom while still married. To make room for that woman, you drove my mother to jump off a building. From that day on, I stopped seeing you as my father. I stared into his pale, trembling face and continued. Now that dying heiress in South City, her family's offering a $50 billion reward for a fortune marriage. You've been pressuring me for 3 months. If I hadn't agreed, were you planning to tie me up and send me there anyway? So what difference does it make whether we sever ties or not? I sneered, lips curled coldly. Go ahead, bring your mistress's son home. Let him be the new heir of the Lee family. My father shook with rage. Fine, let's cut ties then, he gritted his teeth. But listen, that heiress in South City probably won't make it to the end of the month. You must go before then. Then he let out a cold laugh. As for your Aunt Yumi's son, he returned from overseas just a few days ago. He's been staying at a hotel. Now that you're handing over your spot, he'll move in tomorrow. I laughed aloud, the kind of laugh that comes from a heartbreaking wound. You're the only one I've ever seen so desperate to raise another man's son while showing zero love for your own, I said, voice trembling. I turned to leave, but my stepmother, Yumi, blocked my path with a fake concerned expression. Julian, how could you talk to your father like that? She asked, sweet and condescending. I froze. Slowly, I turned back to face her, hatred boiling in my eyes. Hatred I had buried for years. What's wrong? I said low and sharp. You think once I get married and leave this house, you can finally act like the legitimate wife? I stepped closer, one slow step at a time. Yumi, I said coldly, you listen to me. Even if my mother is dead, it won't change the fact that you're a homewrecker. Everyone spits on your precious son. Even if he becomes the heir of the Lee family, he'll still carry the stain of being born to a mistress. Yumi's face went ghost white. She stumbled back 2 steps, unable to speak. I turned and walked away, each step like walking barefoot on blades. Only when I locked my bedroom door did I collapse against it, like all the strength had been drained from my body. The next morning, the sound of people moving furniture and laughing echoed from downstairs. What the hell is going on? I flung the door open. Can't a person sleep around here? The butler stammered. Why? Young master, the second young master has moved in. Before he could finish, a familiar figure appeared at the top of the stairs. Kenji, wearing a white dress shirt. He stood there silently, and in that moment, every drop of blood in my body froze. Chapter 2. I never would have imagined that the stepson my stepmother had been nursing abroad for years was actually Anya's true love. The universe really played a cruel joke on me. The next second, Kenji walked toward me with a smile. Sorry, bro, did we wake you up? Before he could finish, I slammed the door shut with a bang. Julian, do you have any manners at all? My father yelled outside. Clear out your room. Kenji likes it. From now on, it's his. I let out a cold laugh and opened the closet to start packing. Outside, their voices filtered in through the door. Uncle Lee, is Julian mad at me? Kenji's voice was laced with fake concern. Don't worry about him. He's been spoiled since he was a kid. Kenji tried again. But relax, he'll be off to Southern City soon. This house will be yours and your mother's. My hand froze for a second before my smirk deepened. I quickly booked a flight to Southern City at the end of the month and continued packing. Half an hour later, I rolled my suitcase out of the room. In the living room, my father, Yumi, and Kenji were cozied up on the sofa, watching TV with fruit and pastries on the table. They looked every bit like one big happy family. I walked past them without even a glance. Stop right there, my father barked. What are you throwing a tantrum about now? Don't forget what you promised. Don't worry, I'll keep my word, I said without turning back. But for these next 2 weeks, I don't want to stay here and feel sick to my stomach. I went straight to the most luxurious hotel in the city and booked a presidential suite. From that moment on, I started shopping like a madman. I bought the most expensive suits and splurged on antiques and jewelry at auctions to use as wedding gifts. Even if it's a fortune marriage, I'm going to make it grand. My phone kept vibrating in my pocket. I didn't look until I finished buying the last diamond watch. 38 missed calls, all from my father. As soon as I answered, his roar came through the phone. Julian, are you insane? You spent $3 billion in one day. Are you trying to bankrupt me? What's the rush? I replied coldly. Once I'm married, you'll get $50 billion in return. But that money isn't in the account yet. If you keep spending like this, the company's going bankrupt tomorrow. That's exactly what I wanted, to bankrupt him. I'd already arranged for the Su family to deposit the $50 billion directly into my personal account after the wedding. Let's see if Kenji and his gold-digging mother still want to stick with an old man who's lost everything. Did they really think everyone was as foolish as my mother? She built his business with him from scratch, worked herself to the bone, ended up hospitalized from exhaustion, and in the end was driven to jump off a building. The thought of her made my chest clench with pain. My phone buzzed again, a message from Anya. What's with the attitude again? Why didn't you come to the office today? I stared at that message for a long time. This past year, Anya had been disciplining me, so I'd had to show up to work on time almost every single day. But now I was getting married. What more was there for her to control? I returned to the hotel with a dozen shopping bags, only to find my luggage piled up in the lobby. What's going on? I asked coldly. The front desk clerk explained awkwardly. Mr. Lee, your card was declined, and according to hotel policy. Right on cue, my phone buzzed again, a message from my father. If you're cutting ties, then stop using my card. I've frozen all your accounts. I stared at the screen for a long time. In the end, I replied with just one word. Fine. I dragged my suitcase down the street. The flight wasn't until the end of the month. Where was I supposed to stay for the next 2 weeks? What would I eat? What could I even use? My suitcase was full of wedding gifts. There was no way I could sell any of it. As for borrowing money, I'd rather sleep on the streets than beg those fake friends who were just waiting to see me fall. The park bench nearby looked barely passable. I had just set my luggage down when a drunk man staggered over. Get lost. This is my turf. Don't you know that? Who the hell said you could sit in my spot? His fist was already swinging toward my face. Ah! A shriek rang out before I even had time to react. Anya appeared out of nowhere, and one of her bodyguards twisted the man's wrist like it was nothing. The next thing I knew, I was yanked into a car, Me and my suitcase. Let go of me. Anya grabbed my flailing wrist and said coolly, "What are you throwing a fit about now?" Her voice was cold. "You're homeless and you still wouldn't come to me?" Chapter 3. Her words made my nose sting with emotion. Back when I used to run away after fights with my dad, Anya would always drive all over the city looking for me, then drag me home. "What are you throwing a fit about this time?" She'd always say that, just like now. I'd bury my head in her shoulder, breathing in the crisp scent of cedar on her body, foolishly thinking maybe, just maybe, she liked me a little too. But now I realize no one's more heartless than her. She didn't even like me, yet still slept with me. Then, after sleeping with me, she'd go back to her study and gaze longingly at a photo of Kenji. I just don't get it. What does he have that I don't? Family background, looks, body. In what way do I lose to him? She could fall for anyone. Why him? Why Kenji of all people? Let go. My eyes were red as I shoved Anya's hand away with force. She frowned slightly, but said nothing, simply started the engine. Anya drove us back to the villa, pulling my suitcase in behind her. "Same as before," she said as she took off her coat, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Stay until you feel like going home." I stood at the entryway, digging my fingers into my palm. "I'll stay for just 2 weeks. After that, I'll be gone. I'll pay rent, and I won't bother you again." "Won't bother me again?" Anya lifted her eyes slowly, the gaze behind her gold-rimmed glasses deep and unreadable. "You think you're capable of that?" That sentence pierced my chest like a knife. My heart clenched sharply. So she knew all along. She'd seen me go from trading barbs with her to falling so hopelessly in love that I couldn't look at anyone else. I was utterly, pathetically in love with her, and her. She had feelings for someone else and just watched, cold-eyed, while I spiraled. "Kenji," I suddenly asked. "He's my stepmother's son. Did you know that?" Anya's hand paused. "Found out today." After a long silence, I couldn't help but ask, "What's your relationship with him?" "Junior classmate." She poured herself a glass of water and took a sip unhurriedly. "Same school. We worked together in the student council. There was a car accident once. He saved me. His health never fully recovered, so he's been recuperating abroad." She looked at me with a warning in her eyes. "I know you have issues with your stepmother, but this has nothing to do with Kenji. Don't take it out on him." Every word I wanted to say got stuck in my throat. I had wanted to ask, "Do you love him?" But now it just felt like a joke. The way she kept defending him, what was the point of asking? I turned and went to the guest room, slamming the door behind me. That night, for the first time ever, Anya didn't come to check on me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. Of course, her true love was back. Why would she care about me anymore? The next day, I deliberately slept until noon just to avoid seeing Anya. But when I opened the door, she was still at home. She was sitting on the couch, those gold-rimmed glasses perched on her elegant nose, flipping through a finance magazine. "Awake," she said without looking up. "Aren't you going to the office?" I asked. "It's the weekend, oh." I grabbed a sandwich from the fridge, planning to head back to my room. But Anya suddenly said, "Change your clothes. You're coming with me to a gathering later." I was about to say no, but then thought better to be out than stuck alone with her. So I changed and went along. It wasn't until we arrived that I realized it was a welcome back party for Kenji. I turned to leave, but Kenji caught me enthusiastically. "Big bro, I'm so glad you came. Don't fight with Uncle anymore, okay? After you ran away, he was so worried he didn't eat all day." I sneered. "Oh, so you do know he's just your uncle then? What the hell does my running away or fighting with him have to do with you?" I shook off his hand and walked into the private room. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Kenji glance toward Anya with restrained emotion. Anya gave me a dark look, her eyes full of warning. Then she gently patted Kenji's hair, said something I couldn't hear, and he burst into a bright, happy laugh. My heart twisted painfully. I lowered my head and downed a full glass of champagne. Chapter 4. The private room was filled with clinking glasses and loud chatter. I sat in a corner, watching Anya, surrounded by admirers in the center of the room. Though her eyes never strayed far from Kenji. When he reached for a drink, she twisted the cap open before he could. When a drop of wine splashed on his sleeve, she immediately handed him a napkin. When he coughed softly, she adjusted the air conditioning temperature without a word. These gentle, thoughtful gestures she had never once given to me. I numbly downed another glass of wine, my heart feeling like it was being sawed apart with a blunt blade. The pain trembled through my whole body. This past year, all Anya and I did was sleep together again and again. Even during the most intense moments, I'd never seen her lose control, not even once. The bottles pointing at President Lee, someone suddenly shouted. Time for your punishment. Everyone laughed and handed over a tablet. They say President Lee is the coldest and most untouchable in our circle, so we'll go easy, just a simple two-choice game. Pick the one who makes your heart race as fast as you can. The first set of photos, a trending male celebrity and Kenji. Anya glanced once, then answered without hesitation. Kenji. The room erupted in cheers. Kenji's ears turned red, but his smile couldn't be hidden. My fists clenched tightly. Photo after photo flashed across the screen. Each time, Anya chose Kenji without the slightest hesitation. I couldn't listen anymore. I stood up and headed for the bathroom. Just 2 steps out, the room exploded with even louder cheers. I turned back to see the screen showing a photo of me and Kenji. Whoa! Everyone cried out, clearly thrilled. Now this is interesting. Young Master Julian is the most handsome guy in the whole circle. Those celebs can't even compare. If President Lee still picks Kenji, well, then we'll really know what's up. All eyes were on Anya. For once, she hesitated. I froze where I stood, heart pounding like it might burst out of my chest. 3 seconds later, I heard her clear, elegant voice. Kenji. My world collapsed. The roar of laughter and excitement behind me became a dull roar as I stumbled into the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and splashed freezing water onto my face. But no amount of cold could numb the burning pain in my chest. After a long while, I looked up at myself in the mirror and laughed bitterly. I had lost completely. When I left the bathroom, the hallway was dimly lit. I had just turned the corner when I bumped into 3 or 4 drunk men. Hey, don't you have eyes? The lead guy, reeking of alcohol, grabbed me by the collar. Get the hell off. I shoved back, my back hitting the cold wall. You know who we are, another one said, yanking my wrist. We could beat you to death and no one would give a damn. As I struggled, my eyes looked past them and met Anya's across the hall from the private room entrance. Her brows knit together. She was just about to take a step toward me, but then, Kenji cried out behind her. What's wrong? Anya immediately turned back. I think I twisted my ankle. Kenji winced. I'm fine. Go help Julian first. Anya knelt to check his ankle. Don't worry about him. He can handle himself. That sentence stabbed straight into my chest. The drunk man closed in, about to throw a punch. I grabbed a bottle from a decorative shelf in the hallway and smashed it against the wall. Get lost if you want to live. Shards of glass sliced into my hand, blood dripping from my fingers. While they froze in shock, I quickly slipped away. When the party ended, I didn't want to get in Anya's car, so I stood alone by the curb, waiting for a cab. Kenji walked over, holding an umbrella, stepping right into a puddle. Big bro, you don't have a car? Let me give you a ride. I looked at the sleek, brand new sports car key dangling from his hand and suddenly laughed. My father really was generous, buying such a luxury car for a stepson. No thanks. I curled my lips into a cold, mocking smile. Riding in the mistress's son's car feels dirty. Kenji's face darkened instantly, the mask finally falling away. He grabbed my wrist and growled. Julian, say that again. What? Saying it twice makes it any less true? You are the son of the mistress. Let go of me. As we argued, blinding headlights suddenly flared in our direction. I turned my head. A speeding car was veering straight toward us. In a flash of lightning, Anya rushed over and pulled Kenji into her arms, and me. Bang! I was the one hit and thrown to the ground. Chapter 5. I lay in a pool of blood, my vision slowly blurring. I saw Anya holding Kenji tightly in her arms, and countless memories flashed through my mind. The first time we met, the look behind her gold-rimmed glasses was cold as ice. When we clashed, I poured salt into her coffee, and she drank it without flinching. The first time we lost control on her office desk, her nails left scratches on my shoulder. Later, I fell deeper and deeper for her, so much that I decorated an entire villa for her birthday, only to be greeted by rumors about her and Kenji. And then that one time, I had red eyes and walked 5 kilometers alone to visit my mother's grave, my heels covered in bloody blisters. It was Anya who found me, silently removed my ruined shoes, carrying them in one hand and supporting me home with the other. Back then, I thought if I could walk through life like this, it wouldn't be so bad. After my mother died, she was the first person to take me home again. But in the end, all those memories were overwritten by the image of Anya shielding Kenji with her body. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of medical monitors pulled me back to reality. I slowly opened my eyes and heard Kenji's voice coming from the next room, sounding pitiful. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have argued with Julian on the road. I just wanted to drive him home. Anya, why did you save me first? Julian will be angry when he finds out. Anya lifted her hand and gently caressed his face. It wasn't your fault. Her voice was so tender, it was a tone I had never heard from her. If I had to do it all over again, I'd still save you first, she said softly. Your body's still weak, you can't afford more injuries. She paused, then added, besides, he has no reason to be angry. My chest clenched violently, like an invisible hand was twisting my heart with full force. Right? Who am I to Anya? What right do I have to be angry? Whether she saves me or not, that's entirely up to her. Don't cry. Go get some rest, she said gently. She coaxed him for quite a while before Kenji finally left. When the door to the hospital room closed, Anya turned back and saw that I was already awake, quietly watching her. There wasn't a hint of guilt on her face. Calm as ever. She said, it's just a surface wound. Painful, but it'll heal. I brought in the best medical team. You won't have a scar. If it had been before, I would have demanded to know why she didn't save me. But now, I just replied calmly, got it. Thanks. I'll repay the medical bills in 2 weeks. Anya's brows knit slightly, surprised I actually said, thank you, and again that mention of 2 weeks. She didn't press further, probably thinking I was still sulking. In the days that followed, Anya did something rare. She postponed all her work and stayed in the hospital to take care of me. Strangely, I no longer clung to her like I used to. I took my treatment quietly, ate quietly, slept quietly, so quiet it unsettled her. Still mad at me? She finally asked one day while I was getting in a drip. Mad about what? For not saving you that day. She paused. I had a split second, reason to save Kenji. Anya didn't get to finish. A commotion echoed from the hallway. What's going on? A young nurse rushed past. I heard it's the stepson of the Lee Group's chairman, another nurse whispered. He fell down the stairs and was just rushed to emergency. CEO Lee was pale with worry, came in personally with his people. I'm telling you, for a man to treat a stepson like that, he's really one of the good ones. I looked up at Anya just in time to see her expression shift slightly. I have something to handle. She stood up abruptly, more hurried than usual. I'll come back later. I watched her rush out, already knowing where she was headed. I closed my eyes, utterly exhausted and feeling completely hollow inside. Chapter 6. The next time I woke up, it was the nurse who roused me. Why is no one watching over you? The 4 backed up with blood. That could have been really dangerous, she scolded. I slowly lifted my hand. My wrist was swollen and red. I picked up my phone and realized 7 hours had passed. Anya still hadn't returned. Sir, where's your beautiful girlfriend? The nurse asked while changing the dressing. You really shouldn't be alone during IVs. It was risky just now. I pulled at the corner of my lips. She's not my girlfriend. I walked down the corridor alone, supporting myself against the wall, but the conversations echoing through the hallway were like needles in my ears. That Kenji kid is really living the dream. His stepfather treats him so well, and his girlfriend, so attentive. I heard she booked the entire VIP floor and even invited foreign specialists to consult. She's been by his side the whole day, hasn't left once. With his stepfather and girlfriend spoiling him like that, it's like he saved the galaxy in his past life. Before I realized it, I was standing in front of his room. Through the half-open door, I saw Anya leaning over, adjusting Kenji's 4-drip. Her slender fingers turned the dial with precision. My father was seated by the bed, peeling an apple in one long spiral, feeding Kenji piece by piece. Suddenly, I found it hard to breathe. Without warning, tears streamed down my face, burning hot against my cheeks. I wiped them away furiously. Julian, I whispered to the empty hallway. Who are you crying for? No one cares, so stop crying. When I turned around, I straightened my back and walked away, quick and steady, only my palm clenched so tightly that blood seeped out through faint crescent wounds. In the days that followed, Anya didn't show up. It wasn't until discharge day that I finally saw the familiar black Maybach parked outside the hospital. The window rolled down, revealing Anya's cold and elegant profile. "Get in," she said, her voice still as calm and distant as ever. I turned and walked away. "Do you want me to tie you up in front of all these people?" Her words made me stop dead in my tracks. I couldn't believe she still talked to me like that. Back then, she used to threaten me like this all the time, a part of her way of disciplining me. I used to take it as flirting, but now that her true love was back, what right did she have? Grinding my teeth, I got in the car. Anya handed me an auction booklet. "You've been in a bad mood lately. I'm taking you to an auction. Pick something you like. I'll buy it for you. Consider it compensation." I was about to decline, but as I flipped through the pages, my eyes suddenly widened. There it was, my mother's jade bracelet. Ever since Yumi moved in, she'd made my father get rid of all of my mother's belongings, claiming she had nightmares about them. I'd fought with everything I had to keep them, only to be dismissed with, "She's dead. Keeping her things is just bad luck." I never imagined I'd see it again. I clutched the booklet tightly, crumpling the page beneath my palm. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and texted my private lawyer, "Sell everything in my safety deposit box immediately for that bracelet." I didn't care if I went bankrupt or became a laughingstock. The auction hall was bathed in golden light and luxury. When I followed Anya into the VIP section, the first thing I saw was Kenji in a reserved seat. He was wearing a white suit, flashing me a cheerful smile. "Big bro," Kenji slung an arm around my shoulder like we were the best of friends. "I told Anya I wanted to apologize to you at the auction. I didn't think she'd actually bring you along." He winked. "You two are really close, huh?" I froze. Slowly, I turned to look at Anya. She was checking the auction list, her stunning profile illuminated by the chandelier. Not once did she look at me. So that's what it was. She hadn't brought me because she sensed I was in a bad mood. She wasn't trying to cheer me up. She brought me because Kenji wanted to apologize, and I was just a prop she picked up along the way. Oddly enough, the pain I expected never came. My chest just felt hollow, like someone had carved out a piece of me, but there was no blood left to spill. Chapter 7. I sat down without expression, back straight, eyes fixed on the auction stage ahead. By the middle of the auction, I still felt utterly indifferent, until the auctioneer pulled away the red silk from the velvet tray and the jade bracelet shimmered under the spotlight. My pupils constricted sharply. I remembered how, when I was a child, my mother used to wear that bracelet to evening banquets. The soft green glow of the jade would sway gently with her graceful movements, like moonlight made tangible. "You really like it that much?" Anya's voice murmured beside my ear. I didn't respond. I simply raised my paddle. 50 million. 60 million. A voice beside me chimed in. Kenji smiled at me. "Big bro, I really like this bracelet too. Highest bidder wins, right? You don't mind, do you?" My fingertips dug into my palm. 80 million. 100 million. 200 million. 300 million. The price shot all the way up to 1 billion. The money I'd gotten from liquidating the wedding gifts was nearly gone, but Kenji remained composed, calmly raising his paddle again and again, a confident smile still on his lips. 1 billion. Once the auctioneer looked to me. "Young Master Lee, will you go higher?" My throat tightened. I never imagined there would come a day when I'd have to beg for a bracelet. "Yes." I forced the word out, then turned and grabbed Anya's wrist. "Anya, lend me the money." My voice trembled. This bracelet, it was my mother's. I need it. Anya visibly froze. She had never seen Julian, the proud and untouchable Julian, beg so softly. "Please," I whispered, eyes red. "I'm begging you." Anya reached toward her bag, about to pull out her black card. "Anya." Kenji suddenly tugged at her arm, his eyes glossy with tears. "I really love that bracelet." He furrowed his brows. "This is the first time I've ever wanted something this badly. Please don't help Big Bro, okay?" The air froze. I looked at Anya, at the woman who had once brought light into my life. Her brows drew together. Her gaze flickered between me and Kenji. After a long, heavy silence, she finally turned to me and spoke. "Let him have it." Just 4 words, but they stabbed into me like knives. Bang! The gavel fell. Sold. Congratulations to Mr. Yumi. I stood frozen, ice spreading through my entire body. I watched Kenji accept the bracelet, watched the smug smile he flashed at me. My nails dug deep into my palms until blood seeped through my fingers, yet I felt no pain. It was the first time Anya had seen me like this. eyes bloodshot but stubbornly refusing to cry, lips pale from how hard I bit down, yet my back remained straight. And for some reason, she suddenly felt a strange ache rising in her chest. Anya. Kenji leaned against her weakly. I'm not feeling well. Can you get me a blanket? Anya paused for a moment, then stood and walked away, and just like that, I lost all interest in the auction. I sat there, ears ringing, head filled with the image of my mother smiling while wearing that bracelet. As soon as the auction ended, I blocked Kenji's path. Sell me the bracelet, I said hoarsely. Any condition you name it. Kenji chuckled. Any condition? What if I told you to get on your knees? I shook all over. I remembered what my mother said as she held my hand before she died. Julian, no matter what happens, live with dignity. But now I was about to throw away the last of my dignity for a bracelet. Fine. The word came out like blood from between clenched teeth, eyes red. I slowly dropped to my knees. Don't bother, he cut in with a smile. Even if you kneel, it won't matter. I already told someone to toss that stupid bracelet to a stray dog on the street. He pulled out his phone and swiped a few times. The screen lit up with a filthy stray dog. Beneath its muddy paw lay the jade bracelet, stained and dirt-covered. Your mother's keepsake belongs on a dog, Kenji sneered, leaning close to my ear, spitting out every word. After all, bitches belong with dogs, forever and ever. My pupils contracted sharply. My whole body began to tremble. My ears rang violently, like someone was slamming a sledgehammer into my skull. My mother's pale, dying face flashed before my eyes, that bracelet once a symbol of elegance on her wrist. Now, you want to say that again? My voice was so quiet, it was terrifying. Kenji grinned, smug and triumphant. Bitches belong with dogs, forever and ever. What? Didn't catch it. I slowly lifted my head, eyes bloodshot. Which hand did you use to throw it away? This one, he proudly raised his right hand. Why? Are you planning to? Before he could finish, I grabbed the fruit knife from the table and plunged it deep into his palm. Chapter 8. Kenji's shrill scream tore through the banquet hall. Blood gushed out, splattering across my crisp white shirt like blooming red plum blossoms. Chaos erupted in an instant, shouts and screams echoed all around, but I was eerily calm. I glanced coldly around the room, lips slightly parted. Apologies for the scene, I said flatly. My mother died early. No one taught me manners, so usually when I'm wronged, I yanked the knife out. Blood sprayed onto my face. I take revenge on the spot. Kenji's sobs of agony echoed across the auction hall, but I simply dropped the knife and turned to leave. Just as I reached the door, someone grabbed my wrist hard. Anya had apparently just rushed in after hearing the news. She still held a blanket and a heat pack in her arms. A sharp pang pierced my chest. So that's what she'd left for, to buy Kenji these things. Have you completely lost your mind? Anya's face was ice cold. You stabbed someone over a bracelet? What if he did something else you didn't like? Would you kill him? Her grip was crushing, like she was trying to shatter my wrist bone. Fighting through the pain, I hissed. Why don't you ask what he did first? He took my mother's keepsake and... I don't care what he did. Anya snapped, cutting me off. No matter what happened, you don't get to stab someone. Her words pierced straight through me like a blade. I laughed suddenly, so hard the tears welled in my eyes. So what now? President Lee gonna discipline me again? I'm done with you, she said coldly. Someone take him to the police. Charge him with assault. 3 days in detention. Huh. She was really sending me to jail for Kenji. I bit down on my lips so hard I tasted blood, but said nothing. I didn't resist as the police took me away. The last thing I saw was Anya crouching beside Kenji, gently helping him up and whispering, "Don't cry. I'm here." Those 3 days in detention were the worst of my life. I was thrown into the filthiest cell. The other inmates had clearly been bribed. They came up with new ways to torment me every day. Day 1, they stripped me down for inspection, then dumped ice-cold water all over me. Day 2, there were shards of glass in my food. I chewed through blood. Day 3, they pinned me inside a toilet stall and rained punches down like a storm. You really pissed off the wrong people. The leader laughed cruelly, gripping my chin. President Lee said it's time you learned your lesson. Curled up on the filthy floor, my eyes were bloodshot. I couldn't believe Anya would go this far, but every bruise, every wound on my body told me she truly could. 3 days later, When the officers finally came to release me, I could barely stand. Covered in injuries, I staggered out the gates of the detention center and collapsed the moment I stepped outside. When I woke again, I was in a hospital room. Anya stood by the bed, arms crossed, voice icy. Learned your lesson this time? Chapter 9. I stared silently at the ceiling, saying nothing. Something in Anya's chest flared with irritation. Just as she was about to speak, a nurse rushed in. Miss Lee, Mr. Kenji is complaining about the pain again. Think about what you've done. Anya turned to leave. Don't cause more trouble. The days that followed, I was eerily quiet. Kenji sent me photos every day, pictures of Anya taking care of him. I ignored them all, until the day I was discharged. Kenji showed up in person. Big bro, out in just 3 days, he said, waving his bandaged right hand. You know how long I'll be in recovery because of that stab? If Anya hadn't flown in a specialist from overseas with a blank check, this hand would be gone. You deserved it, I said coldly. Kenji suddenly smiled. Julian, why do you still act so proud? You love Anya, don't you? So how's it feel being the one she personally sent to jail? Feels like dying, doesn't it? I finally turned to look at him. What do you want to say? Oh, nothing much, just felt like telling a story. Kenji sat on the edge of the bed. You didn't know, did you? Anya and I were high school classmates. Every guy in school had a crush on her, but she never gave them a second glance. He touched his bandage, pride glinting in his eyes. Except for me. She remembered I don't take sugar in my coffee. Always brought an extra umbrella when it rained. During student council events, she only accepted water from me. During school speeches, her eyes always found me in the crowd. Every guy was jealous, but she only smiled at me. Right when we were about to break through that invisible line between us, he said softly. I got into a car accident saving her and had to leave for medical treatment overseas. But we stayed in touch all these years. My fingers curled tightly into my palm. Later, I told Anya that my mom had married into a wealthy family, but the heir of that family kept bullying her. Kenji gave a mocking laugh. She picked up the phone and called your father immediately. Do you know what she said? Leave Julian to me. I'll take care of him. My whole body trembled. All this time, I thought it was my father who had handed me over to Anya. She was perfect in school, and turns out she's a perfect disciplinarian too. Kenji leaned in close to my ear. Took no effort at all to make you fall for her. I was pissed at first, he chuckled, until I saw her disciplinary plan for you. That's when I understood her purpose. After all, young Master Lee, is pride your greatest weakness? If your feelings belong to me, how would you ever dare hurt me again? Anya slept with you probably just to make sure you completely fell, so I could hold all the cards. When he finished, Kenji stood and smiled, watching the blood drain from my face with satisfaction. Then he walked out of the room. I felt like lightning had struck me, my blood turned to ice. I stormed out of the hospital like a madman, hauled a cab, and headed straight to the Lee estate. Back at the villa, I tore through every room like I'd lost my mind. Study drawers, nothing. Bedroom safe, nothing. Finally, in a hidden drive connected to her office computer, I found a locked, encrypted folder. The moment I opened it, my legs gave out, and I collapsed to the floor. There, on the screen, was a step-by-step breakdown of my psychological collapse, from the first step to the very last, clearly labeled, neatly categorized, every stage, every manipulation documented in full. Chapter 10. I dialed my father's number. Didn't we agree not to contact each other anymore? His voice was cold. I've already sent you the paperwork for severing father-son ties. The end of the month is near. You need to be in Southern City within the next day or two. I only have one question, I said hoarsely. Back then, was it you who gave me to Anya to discipline? Or did she ask for me? What's the point of asking that now? Tell me. He paused, then said, it was her. Traded for the Southern City real estate deal. I was sick of seeing you anyway. 2 birds with 1 stone. Crack. My phone hit the floor, the screen shattering on impact, and then I laughed. The sound echoed through the empty villa, wild and raw. I laughed until my throat hurt. I laughed until tears poured down my face. Anya, you really outdid yourself. I didn't know how long it lasted before I wiped my tears dry, walked to the bedroom, and pulled out the suitcase I had packed long ago. Step by step, I headed for the door. Each step felt like walking barefoot on blades, but my stride was firm. At the doorway, I stopped. My fingers absent-mindedly rubbed the lighter in my pocket. the birthday gift Anya had given me, engraved in her handwriting. To Julian. I let out a quiet laugh. The next second, without hesitation, I struck the lighter and tossed it into the curtains. Whoosh! Flames roared to life, quickly swallowing the entire living room. I stood outside the villa, watching in silence as the fire devoured everything. The sofa we once tangled on, the dining table where we kissed, and that bed where I once foolishly believed she might have felt something even for a moment. Anya arrived an hour later. The black car screeched to a stop outside the burning villa, tires screaming across the pavement. She threw open the door and was greeted by a wall of flames. Me, sitting calmly on my suitcase. I gazed at the fire, the glow reflecting off my pale face, my bloodshot eyes unblinking. Anya's chest tightened painfully. She had 1,000 accusations on the tip of her tongue, but when she saw my hollow, red-rimmed eyes, all of it stuck in her throat. "You burned the house down," she finally said, voice low. "Feeling better now, young Master Lee?" I slowly looked up. The eyes that once brimmed with love were now completely dead. I stared at Anya like I was looking at a stranger. I didn't say a word. President Lee, her assistant, rushed over. "The private jet is ready. The meeting in Switzerland can't be postponed again." Anya pressed a hand to her temple. "Get someone to handle this villa." She paused, then glanced at me. "Take him to the Southern City residence." "No need." I finally spoke, voice rough and resolute. "I'm going home." Anya thought I'd finally come around. Thought I meant the Lee family home. Her brows relaxed slightly. "It's better this way." She turned to leave, black dress swirling in the night wind. "I won't always be there to clean up your mess." I stood where I was, watching her silhouette disappear into the distance. Then suddenly a bitter smile curved my lips. "Anya," I whispered, so quietly the night wind nearly swept it away. "This is goodbye forever." "What?" She turned her head, but I was already opening the taxi door and getting in. Anya assumed I was just throwing another tantrum and didn't press further. She got into her own car. She never noticed 2 cars drove to the airport one after the other. On the tarmac, Anya boarded her private jet after receiving documents from her assistant, without looking back. And inside the terminal, I transferred the last of the rent and hospital bills to Anya's account, then dropped my phone into a trash bin and walked without looking back toward the gate to Southern City. 2 planes lifted off at the same time, flying in opposite directions, never to cross paths again. Chapter 11. 3 days later, Anya's overseas meeting finally came to an end. She rubbed her throbbing temples and turned on her phone, which had been off for days. Messages flooded in. Kenji had sent over 99 texts. Julian had sent just one. Instinctively, she tapped on Julian's message thread. It was a transfer notification. Transfer 500,000. Note. Half-month rent plus medical expenses. Nothing else, not a single word. Anya's brows furrowed. She almost laughed from sheer disbelief. Her slender fingers tapped rapidly across the screen. "You think I need that little bit of money? What even are we to each other that you feel the need to settle scores this precisely?" After hitting send, she stared at the screen for 10 minutes. In the past, Julian always replied within seconds whenever she messaged, but this time, the chat window remained eerily silent. She called him directly. "The number you have dialed is powered off." The robotic voice echoed from the receiver. Anya paused, slightly startled. Was he still asleep? She pictured Julian sleeping, thick brows always furrowed slightly, lips pressed together, sometimes unconsciously pulling her into his arms. A faint smile touched her lips. She tapped on Julian's profile photo, a proud, aloof ragdoll cat with piercing blue eyes, just like him. Her finger brushed across the screen unconsciously. Eventually, she typed one last message. "I'll be back tomorrow night. Come pick me up." Still no reply. She set her phone aside and called her assistant. "What did you find out about the thing I asked?" "President Lee, it's confirmed that jade bracelet is going up for auction at Rambo's Eye tonight. It's definitely the one young Master Lee's mother used to wear. Get the car." 30 minutes later, Anya arrived at the auction hall. She wore a black mermaid dress, her gaze behind gold-rimmed glasses cold and distant. Several young heirs approached to make conversation. She turned every one of them away. When the jade bracelet was brought to the stage, the entire room buzzed with excitement. Starting bid, 1 billion, 1.1 billion, 1.2 billion. The price climbed rapidly, But Anya remained silent. Only when it reached 2 billion did she finally raise her paddle. 5 billion. The room fell silent. In the end, the jade bracelet was sold to Anya for a sky-high price. On the ride back, her assistant couldn't hold back anymore. President Lee, that bracelet, when you didn't lend young Master Lee the money to buy it back then, he seemed to really resent you. If he knew how hard you worked to track down the real one and how much you paid for it tonight, he'd be so happy. Anya gently stroked the velvet box. Julian's face surfaced in her mind. Would he really be happy? Of course, the assistant brightened. Young Master Julian wears his emotions on his sleeve. He may have a temper, but he's genuinely kind. Remember that time when the new intern spilled coffee on him? Everyone else would have yelled, but he just said, "Perfect excuse to change my pants." As she spoke, the temperature in the car seemed to drop several degrees. In the rearview mirror, Anya's expression had turned dangerously cold. The assistant instantly shut her mouth. "Do you like him?" Anya's voice was icy. The assistant's hands trembled on the steering wheel, nearly swerving into the guardrail. "I'll tell the truth." The assistant took a deep breath. "A man like young Master Julian. Who wouldn't like him? But don't worry, I know he only has eyes for you." She gave a bitter smile. "That's why it's just a quiet crush. I've never said anything." Anya's expression finally eased a little, but the assistant suddenly gathered her courage and said, "I just wish you'd be kinder to him. Don't go from liking Kenji one moment to treating Julian kindly the next. Young Master Julian deserves to be loved fully and wholeheartedly." Anya narrowed her eyes. "One moment I like Kenji, the next I'm kind to Julian? What exactly are you implying?" Since everything was out in the open, the assistant decided to go all in. "Exactly what it sounds like, President Lee. I've been wanting to ask this for a long time. Who do you really love? Kenji or Julian?" Chapter 12. Of course it's Julian. Anya had just finished her sentence when the assistant suddenly slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching sharply against the pavement. "I'm so sorry, President Lee." The assistant apologized in a panic, cold sweat breaking out on her back. To her surprise, Anya didn't get angry. She merely looked up coldly, peering through her glasses into the rearview mirror. "That answer shocks you so much." The assistant's hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. Shocked was an understatement. It had completely overturned everything she thought she knew. But she didn't dare speak too bluntly. But I thought you were really fond of young Master Yumi, more than young Master Lee even." Anya pressed her long, elegant fingers to her temples and leaned back into the leather seat. "That's because he once saved my life." Neon lights flashed past her striking profile outside the car window, and the eyes that were always calm and composed now revealed an unusual trace of exhaustion. She closed her eyes, and memories surged like a tide. Back in high school, she was famously untouchable, the classic Ice Queen. Her desk drawer overflowed daily with love letters, and boys would often pretend to bump into her in the hallways. The most outrageous attempt: a guy had arranged roses into a heart on the ground below the teaching building to confess his love. "Cicely, maybe you should pretend to be close to a guy," the student council president had suggested. That way the others might back off. She thought that was actually a good idea, but who to choose? Her eyes scanned the field until they landed on Kenji, who was feeding a stray cat. It was a sunny day. He was wearing a white shirt, crouched under a tree, and something about him exuded simple kindness. "I'll do," she thought. From then on, she began to treat Kenji differently. Only accepted water from him, looked toward his side during speeches, even tacitly allowed rumors about them to circulate at school. It worked. The love letters quickly dwindled. On graduation day, Kenji asked to meet her at a cafe. As they crossed the street, a car suddenly lost control and rushed toward them. In a split second, Kenji pushed her out of the way. Bang! Amid the sharp sound of brakes, she saw him get thrown into the air like a rag doll. Later, lying pale on the hospital bed, the boy said weakly, "Anya, I don't regret it." The doctors diagnosed internal injuries. Kenji had to go abroad for long-term treatment. Out of guilt, she had done everything she could to fulfill his requests over the years. The only thing she was thankful for was that because of something Kenji once said, she had volunteered to discipline Julian. The thought brought a subtle curve to Anya's lips. She could still remember their first meeting vividly. That day, at the top floor of Lee Corporation, she was reviewing documents when the door was suddenly pushed open. A figure entered her line of sight. Julian leaned against the door frame, lips curved. President Lee, quite the attitude, huh? You kept me waiting half an hour. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a golden outline around him. He was bright, like a blazing fire that crashed uninvited into her otherwise black and white world. On the surface, she appeared calm, but her heart skipped a beat. From then on, he caused all sorts of trouble, putting salt in her coffee, folding her important documents into paper airplanes, even strutting around in pajamas during her meetings. She countered every move, always staying a step ahead. The most unforgettable moment was when he tried to drug her. She had sensed something was off with the coffee, but drank it on purpose. When the effects kicked in, she got exactly what she wanted. She pinned, in the back seat, calmly watching the scenery outside. Anya was behind the wheel, her silk scarf rumpled, her shirt slightly unbuttoned. Her bloodshot eyes revealed how hastily she must have driven over. Julian had never seen her so disheveled. I had the detention center situation handled, she began. I never meant for you to get hurt, but I didn't expect Kenji would use my name to bribe people into hurting you. My study? I didn't let you in because I was hiding your things inside. As for those photos of Kenji, he bribed the staff to place them there. Kenji and your father have been sent to a long-term care facility in North City. They'll never be able to make a comeback. Your father's company is bankrupt. She explained everything piece by piece, like trying to peel away every layer of misunderstanding. When Julian just asked flatly. And then, Anya froze. And then her voice trembled. Come back with me, Julian. The one I've always loved is you. Julian smiled. It was a faint smile, but it cut like a dull knife, slow and brutal. Anya, you've always known my position, he said quietly. But even so, you still chose to defend Kenji over and over again. Even if you didn't love him, the hurt you caused me, that was real. I had already started to forget my feelings for you during that time, and now I can't bring them back. Anya's fingers tightened around the steering wheel, her knuckles turning white. Her voice shook. Julian, I'm not perfect. I messed up. But can't I be allowed even one mistake? Does one mistake really mean I have to lose you forever? Julian looked at her, his eyes calm, almost cruel. Yes, I don't hate you, but I won't love you again. He pulled a gold-embossed invitation from his bag and handed it to her. 3 days from now, Anna and I are getting married. With your pride, I know you won't beg me for forgiveness again. So let's both hold on to our pride. Let's end this with dignity. With that, he opened the car door and walked away without looking back, toward Anna, who was waiting by the roadside. Anya sat in the car, watching Julian's fading silhouette, and suddenly she remembered the first time she ever saw him. So arrogant, so brilliant, like a flame bursting into her black and white world. And now that flame had gone out completely. Chapter 19. The day before the wedding, at the Sue family's private estate, Julian sat in the room, his fingertips brushing lightly over his suit. Outside, the sun was shining gently as the staff bustled about preparing the venue for tomorrow's ceremony. Everything looked perfect. A soft knock came at the door. Julian. Anna pushed the door open, carrying a cup of warm rose tea in one hand and a velvet gift box in the other. She was dressed in an elegant formal gown, her neckline slightly open, her eyes unbearably gentle. You barely touched your breakfast. She placed the cup beside him, her tone full of helplessness. The kitchen said you only had half a glass of milk. Julian looked up at her, the corners of his lips lifting slightly. Is Madame Sue personally here to scold me now? I wouldn't dare. She leaned down and handed him the box. I just didn't want you to go hungry. He opened the box. Inside were a few delicate pieces of chocolate. I heard you used to love this brand, Anna said softly. I had it flown in from Switzerland. Julian was stunned. He hadn't expected her to learn something so small about him. He was just about to speak when the estate security alarm suddenly blared sharply. What's going on? Anna frowned and pressed the earpiece in her ear. Security, report immediately. A rushed voice came through. President Sue, the system has been hacked. All surveillance and access controls are down. Anna's expression changed instantly. She turned to Julian. Big brother, stay here, don't move. She strode out of the room, and Julian could hear her barking orders in the hallway. Seal every exit. But before he could even react, the door to the suite opened silently. A tall figure stood at the threshold. The black dress she wore still carried the chill of the night wind. Anya. Julian jumped up, knocking over the glass on the table. The sound of it shattering cut through the silence like a blade. Anya. Julian stared in disbelief. How did you get in here? Anya didn't answer. She simply stared at him, a dark fire burning in her eyes. Come with me, she said, her voice raspy. Julian stepped back. Are you insane? The wedding's tomorrow. So what? She sneered. You're really going to marry her? It's none of your business. It is, she said, stepping closer. Whatever happens to you will always be my business. Julian's heart began to race. He instinctively glanced toward the door, but the hallway was empty. Where was Anna? Where was security? Anya saw through his thoughts. Don't bother looking. She won't be coming anytime soon. What did you do to her? Relax, I didn't touch her, Anya replied. I just had people keep her occupied. Julian clenched his fists. What exactly do you want? She stared into him, then suddenly asked, Do you really love her? Julian froze. Not yet, he finally answered. But I'm trying. Trying. Anya looked like the word physically hurt her. Julian, since when did you need to try to love someone? Because she's worth it. Julian looked her straight in the eyes. And even if I don't love her now, it doesn't mean I'll go back to loving you. Anya's breath caught. Her eyes burned red. In the next moment, the bodyguards at her side moved in and grabbed Julian's wrists. Let go, he struggled, but the two of them restrained him with ease. Save your strength, she muttered. You'll need it later. Then she dragged him toward the floor-to-ceiling window. Outside, a helicopter hovered in midair, the roar of its rotors deafening. Julian's pupils shrank. Anya, this is kidnapping. So what? She laughed bitterly, stepping onto the windowsill. I should have done this the moment I first laid eyes on you. The night wind howled. Julian's clothes flapped violently in the breeze. He twisted his neck for one last look at the estate, only to see Anna in the distance, blocked by several men in black. She looked like she was screaming his name, but the wind was too loud. He couldn't hear a thing. Chapter 20. A private island, early morning. The helicopter landed on the central helipad of the island. As the roar of the rotors faded, only the sound of waves crashing against the rocks remained. Anya dragged Julian off the aircraft. The moment his feet touched the ground, he shoved her away. Unlawful detainment, he sneered. Since when did President Lee stoop this low? Anya wasn't angry. Instead, she chuckled softly. And what if I did? She raised her hand and caressed Julian's cheek, her fingers cold, but her gaze was burning. Julian, you belong to me in this lifetime. Don't even think about marrying anyone else. Inside the main villa, Anya gave Julian a full tour of the island. All of this is yours. She pushed open the floor-to-ceiling windows, letting the sea breeze thick with salty moisture rush in. The garden, the pool, the library, even that part of the ocean. Julian remained unmoved. I want to go back. Julian, forget all the unpleasant things, she said, hugging him from behind, resting her cheek against his back. Her voice was soft. Let's start over. Let's pretend none of it ever happened. Julian broke free from her arms, turned around, and scoffed. Anya, when did you start lying to yourself? Her body stiffened. After a pause, she said, Julian, I'll bring you back to how you used to be. In the days that followed, Anya treated him with obsessive, near-maniacal devotion. Julian took a barefoot walk on the beach. The next morning, the entire shoreline was covered with silky white sand flown in from northern Europe. He woke up in the middle of the night. By then, a soft night light sat at his bedside, glowing as gently as moonlight. Anya was right there by his side, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. Julian casually mentioned craving mango. The next day, she had an entire mango tree flown in and planted in the garden. This version of Anya was someone Julian had never seen before. Tender, possessive, unconditionally indulgent. For a fleeting second, he felt a moment of confusion. If she had treated him like this before, how different could things have been? But the very next second, he sobered. There was no going back. A week later, Julian began a hunger strike. You're not eating? Anya approached with a fruit platter, her gaze shadowed. Then I'll feed you myself. She picked up a cherry with her lips, grabbed Julian's chin, and kissed him. He resisted. Juice ran down his lips, only to be licked away by her. The kiss deepened, turning into something else entirely. Anya's breathing grew heavier, her arms wrapped around Julian's neck as she pulled him into her. He turned his face away. "Don't touch me." Anya froze, pain flooding her eyes. Finally, she simply leaned her forehead against his, her voice raw and cracked. "Julian, what do you want me to do?" He looked at her and suddenly smiled. "Let me go." Chapter 21. Due to an overwhelming workload at Lee Corporation, Anya was forced to return to handle business. Private Island. Dusk on the third day after Anya's departure. Julian stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching as the last sliver of sunlight vanished beneath the horizon. A servant entered quietly, setting down a cup of warm milk. "Sir, please try to drink a little." Julian didn't move. He only asked, "When is she coming back?" President Lee said she would return after finishing. Bang! The glass shattered against the wall, fragments flying as milk splattered across the floor. Julian sneered coldly. "Get out." Terrified, the servant hurried away. Julian bent down and picked up the sharpest shard of broken glass. At the same time, Lee Corporation headquarters, North City. In the boardroom, Anya sat at the head of the table, listening absent-mindedly to reports as her fingers absent-mindedly traced over her phone screen. On the screen was a screenshot from the surveillance feed she saved the night before. Julian standing alone on the beach, staring out at the sea. His silhouette looked so fragile, as if it could be carried away by the wind at any moment. President Lee, about the merger case. She suddenly stood. "Get the car. I'm going to the airport." Her assistant blinked. "But the board." I said now. Helipad. Anya's private jet had barely touched down before she descended the stairs in a hurry. 3 days without seeing him, and the longing had nearly driven her mad. "President Lee, all the gifts are ready." Her assistant followed closely, carrying several ornate boxes. "The blue diamond watch he requested and the items Mr. Julian likes." "Where is he?" Anya interrupted. In the master bedroom." Her assistant's nervous stammer made her heart clench. Anya's face changed. She broke into a run toward the villa. Master bedroom. The door was kicked open with a loud crash. Julian sat at the edge of the bed. A vivid slash marked his wrist, blood dripping slowly onto the carpet, forming a deep red bloom. Anya's pupils contracted. She rushed forward and grabbed Julian's wrist tightly. "If you dare die, I'll make sure the entire Sue family goes down with you." Julian looked up, pale, a mocking smile on his face. "What will it take for you to finally let me go? Say you love me. In your dreams." Anya stared at him, then suddenly smiled. That smile made a chill run down Julian's spine. She let go of him, turned to her assistant, and said, "Connect with every global news outlet now." Her assistant was stunned. "President Lee, you mean, live stream?" Anya's voice was calm, each word clear and deliberate. "My wedding with Julian." 10 minutes later, cameras pointed directly at the master bedroom's massive windows. Anya had changed into a wedding dress. Julian had been forced into a suit, the injury on his wrist concealed beneath a luxury watch. Start. The moment the live stream went live, headlines on every major media outlet across the globe flashed with coverage of this sudden wedding. Anya wrapped her arms around Julian's neck and kissed him. Julian shoved her away and bit her lip hard. Blood ran from her mouth, dripping onto his suit. The live stream abruptly cut off, but it was too late. The internet exploded. "Anya." Julian shoved her off, his lips stained with her blood. "Are you insane?" Anya wiped the blood from her mouth and gave a soft laugh. "Now the whole world knows you belong to me." Julian stared at her, suddenly unable to recognize the woman in front of him. This obsession-driven, unhinged woman. Was this really the same Anya he once loved? Chapter 22. Julian learned how to submit on the 27th day of captivity. He stopped resisting, stopped starving himself. He even began to smile at Anya from time to time. At first, she was cautious, but slowly, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he had accepted his fate. "What do you want to eat today?" Early morning, Anya stood beside the bed, asking gently. Julian leaned against the headboard, brushing the stray hair from his forehead. His tone was soft. "Something you make." Her fingers paused. A flicker of surprise crossed her eyes, then she smiled. "All right." She turned and walked toward the kitchen, her posture relaxed for once. Julian watched her disappear through the doorway, then immediately threw back the covers and reached beneath the mattress, pulling out a miniature computer stolen from her study just last week. His fingers flew across the keyboard, code blurred across the screen. Without a trace, he breached the island's security system and dispatched an encrypted distress signal. 3 days later, deep into the night, Julian stood at the edge of a cliff, the ocean wind roaring in his ears. Footsteps pounded behind him. Anna arrived, bringing backup. "Brother," she ran to him, her face pale. "Come with me." Julian glanced back at the guards giving chase, then suddenly smiled. "Anna, are you afraid of heights?" Before she could react, he grabbed her and leapt off the cliff. Below them, raging waves crashed against the rocks, but Julian had already scouted out footholds along the cliffside. The guards didn't dare follow. They could only watch as he and Anna vanished into the night. Waves battered the reef. Soaked to the bone, Anna and Julian struggled ashore. "Come on." Anna grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the speedboat. But just then, a blinding spotlight cut through the darkness. Anya stood at the shoreline, dozens of bodyguards at her back. Done running, her voice was ice. Julian stepped in front of Anna. "Anya, let her go." Anya stared at Julian, then suddenly smiled. "Fine, but you have to stay." Julian opened his mouth to speak, but a thunderous crash erupted above them. A boulder dislodged from the cliffside, plummeting straight toward Anna and Julian. "Watch out." Anya lunged forward and shoved them out of the way. The boulder crashed down on her leg. Blood instantly dyed the seawater red. Julian was thrown back by the impact, his head slamming hard against a jagged rock. His vision darkened, but he forced his eyes open just enough to see Anya lying in a pool of blood, her face deathly pale, still staring at him. "Julian, are you okay?" He opened his mouth, darkness closing in, and before everything faded, he heard himself say, "Anya, let me go." When Anya awoke, the first thing she felt was the numbness in her legs. A doctor stood at her bedside, his voice low and cautious. "President Lee, your spinal cord was damaged. Motor function in your lower limbs might be." He didn't finish, but the meaning was clear. Her assistant stood nearby, eyes red. "I'll go tell Mr. Julian. Once he knows you saved him." "Shut up." Anya's voice was cold and sharp. "No one says a word." She turned her head toward the window. The sunlight was so bright it stung her eyes. She thought back to the last thing she saw before losing consciousness. Julian, collapsed not far from her, his face pale, still forcing himself to speak. "Anya, let me go." At that moment, she finally understood what it meant to be inconsolably heartbroken. Some mistakes, once made, mean losing the one you love forever. 1 month later, Anya sat in a wheelchair, watching the news on TV. Today, Sioux Corporation's President Anna and young Master Lee are officially wed. On screen, Julian was dressed in a sharp suit, smiling with ease. He had once smiled at her like that, too, back when she hadn't yet repeatedly chosen Kenji over him, back when she hadn't had him thrown in detention, back when she hadn't pushed him to the point of burning down the villa. Anya turned off the TV silently. She wheeled herself to the study. A file sat on the desk, freshly delivered by her assistant. She opened it. Inside were reports tracking Julian's life over the past month. He had gone to Venice with Anna and kissed her beneath the Bridge of Sighs. He attended business galas with her, his arm around her shoulders, his smile soft and loving. He had even started learning to cook because Anna had a sensitive stomach. Anya looked at the photos and suddenly she smiled. She had once had all of his love and shattered it with her own hands. Now, all that tenderness belonged to someone else. Alone, she went to visit the burned-down villa. Among the ruins, she lit a cigarette, staring blankly at the charred walls. Her phone suddenly rang. "Hello, this is the Cartier Custom Service Center." The voice on the other end was polite. "The wedding rings young Master Lee ordered. Have they already been?" "He left your number on file. May I ask if the ceremony has already taken place?" Anya's fingers trembled. The ash from her cigarette dropped onto her dress, burning a hole. So it turned out, he had once truly intended to marry her. Back when he had given her all his love. Back before she made her unforgivable mistakes. A sudden, unbearable pain gripped her chest. She bent forward, gasping for breath. A passing neighbor paused and asked curiously, "This place is all burnt down. Are you waiting for someone?" Anya looked up. Sunlight fell across her pale face. "Yes," she said softly. "I'm waiting." But she knew no one would ever come again. The sun outside was warm and golden, but no one would ever burst through that door again, calling her name with joy. Anya was alone.